All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is June 16th, House Government Operations and Military Affairs.
Wow, we're still here. Go on.
Yeah, oh, no, it is here. Yes, it's a 16th, yeah. Hopefully there's not a 17th. Anyway, focusing, we are taking a look at the Senate proposal of amendment and on H 474. And then speaking to Deputy Secretary of State. But first, I think I would like to start with Senator Callamore, as he is the shepherd of the bill and it has just voted out of the Senate, correct, sir?
Indeed.
Please join us.
Yeah, the shepherd. For the record, Senator Callamore from the Rutland District. And again, my thanks to you here in this committee for your hard work on this bill. We did take it into the Senate corresponding committee and have a strike all amendment, which I'm sure you've looked at, hopefully. And the only change from that and what was in the Senate calendar is the amendment that I was successful in putting into place earlier today. It's a 2-page amendment and it looks like it's really complicated and dense, but it isn't. All it does is, I don't want to say return to, but it makes current law still current by continuing the threshold for write-in candidates to be 25% or 25 votes in the House and 50 in the Senate. The bill as introduced would have doubled that and would in essence have made it the same as announced candidates, if you will. I'm assuming that the rationale once upon a time was write-in candidates don't have the same length of time to be running out, getting signatures. They're in many ways, circumstances, standing at the polls that day saying, hey, what you writing my name in? So that's why the threshold was lower. I think, I don't know, because it was in law when I came in. Anyway, that passed. I did have some questions on the floor with respect to the strike all bill. I think for the most part, I answered them. And it passed almost unanimously. I believe there were 2 no votes out of the 30 of us. So it will be yours to deal with hopefully this afternoon. Again, I have no way of predicting the future, but I don't think we'll be here tomorrow. So we're hoping that you will be able to take it up today and send it on to the governor. And I'll be glad to answer any questions about the strike all bill that we came up with. But I understand from rumors around the building that the threshold was going to create some angst for some folks. So we were able this morning to take care of that, I hope. And the rest of it, I think, seems pretty simple. I will explain what I did. It became evident to me, at least, on May 30th, that last day that we were here together for today, that the bill didn't have runway enough to get out this year. And I was dismayed at that. Say what you want about the process here and the procedures, but that's the way it seemed to land. So the Deputy Secretary of State and the Elections Director and I, and the Secretary of State, to be fair, huddled at one point that Friday. And we came up with the idea of, I said to them, give me your absolute must-have provisions in this now 40-page bill, and I'll go back and draft it with deletions so that we can get a vote out of the Senate committee and then hopefully have the House concur. So you'll see a lot of deletions in the strike all. The ranked choice voting is gone. The electronic voting is gone. There's some other campaign finance things that we tweaked a little bit. Doesn't mean any of that is dead. It just means for the moment, this year, today, that they're not in the bill. And hopefully, because it is a time-sensitive situation, we can get it done.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I want to thank you for working so diligently to get this bill moving. There's a lot of mechanical stuff in here, a lot of technical stuff in here that's been desired for a couple of years now. And I also want to thank you publicly on the record for being a great communicator and partner with this committee and myself on this process. So I just want to say that part out loud. So my first question for you is, you said you had a couple of answers posed to you. while you were on the floor. What was the main curiosity point for members of your chamber?
It had to do with the write-in situation. I think the two senators who were both from the Chittenden County, not the same area, but the same district, but both there had concerns that we were not allowing enough flexibility for write-in candidates. That was the one bite at the apple provision that we left in the bill. And so the question arose, and I had to take a recess because I hadn't really thought about it this way. If a write-in candidate in a primary loses, can that candidate run again in the general election? And the answer is no, because again, the principle is you only get one time to do it. And if you're not successful, you got to wait for 2 years and try it again. So just because it's a write-in candidate doesn't make it any different than if it was a candidate from a major party. So that was one of them. And to be fair, I understood the point that maybe we are sort of in some manner restricting democracy in terms of being able to jump in a race, but I'm not sure I buy that 100%. Again, if someone wants to run for office, as I think most people here did, you go and you file the consent form and you run around and you say, hey, would you sign my petition? And so there's a process for doing that. And I just think that's probably the way 99% of us do it. I understand there were people from other districts in mind that did manage to get elected as write-in candidates, and that's okay too. And we did massage it to the point, and again, I want to thank both Lauren and Sean for great cooperation on this. We did massage it to the point, I mean, at one time we had it so that if you ran as a write-in candidate, even if you got more votes than the candidate who ran on either of the major parties, you wouldn't win. And that seemed like, whoa, wait a minute. That's not exactly the way. So we've massaged it to the point where there are 4 or 5 exemptions, if you will, that allow people to count the ballots if certain things happen. If somebody dies the day before the election, that write-in candidate will be counted. If they don't file by that 5 p.m. Thursday, but again, they receive enough votes to be considered a candidate, that those votes will be counted. And a lot of this was based upon the fact that we were trying to relieve our clerks of undue kind of work. You know, some of them were 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning still counting write-ins. And you know, I think we got it to the point where maybe not everybody happy, but at least everybody said, yeah, that kind of makes some sense. So those were the 2 issues, the one bite at the apple and then the write-in candidates.
Okay, no, thank you. Just curious about that. Because sometimes the Q&As, especially when we move bills this tightly together from chamber to chamber, the Q&As often mirror themselves. Any other questions for Senator Calhoun from the table?
And I'll shoot it right back at you. I appreciate the kind words, but it's a team effort. I had 4 other senators who worked,
Of course,
most of the time pretty seamlessly on bills. And so it's great. And I enjoy coming up and seeing all of you fine folks too. And you've done some great work this session. Don't kid yourself. Did some great stuff. So hopefully this will get to the floor today. And if there are anticipated questions I can help you answer, I'd be glad to do that. My goal here is to hear it. I don't know. You're on at 1?
we're not going back on the floor till 2. Yeah.
So we're on at 2:30. Well, good afternoon or good morning still.
Oh, ouch.
The happiest time today would be to hear that the bill passed the House and is on the way to the governor.
That is, I can't wait. I hope to report that information to you later today. Yeah. Anything from the committee for Senator Cal? Nope. All right. You are free and clear, sir.
Okay, thank
so
you.
much for your time.
Yep.
We have Deputy Secretary here, if you wouldn't mind joining us.
Is it okay, Sean?
Please, yes, I love a duet.
Do you like this wet?
No, not today.
But we were not actually gonna sing.
We're a little rusty.
Yeah, we are so out of table shape right now. Oh, anyway, good to see y'all.
For the record, Lauren Hibbert, Deputy Secretary of State.
Sheehan, Elections Director at State's Office.
We are delighted to be with you this afternoon, to talk about the changes that the Senate made to H 474. We did talk about the majority of the changes before your last adjournment. So I'm going to just run through them really quickly, what is stayed in the bill. The one bite candidacy is in. This was not a major policy objection for the policy objective for the Secretary of State, but it has stayed in the bill. I understand it was a priority for here. The delivery of early voter absentee ballots, this committee cleaned up the definition of an overseas voter. Thank you for doing that. It now aligns with the federal definition. And that section, that is section 7 on page 2 and 3 of draft 11.3 remained the same. It did not change in the Senate. Section 8, 9, it's really quite a few sections, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 modifies the write-in candidates, really streamlining the process. This has changed since it was in this committee. As Senator Collimore spoke to, we created exemptions. We changed the deadline. So when it left this committee after the amendment, it was that a write-in candidate need to file by the close of business on election night. We modified it to 5 p.m. on the Thursday before an election, with a lot of exceptions. First and foremost, if your name is on a ballot in a different party for the same race, meaning I'm running in the Republican Party for House, but I am a write-in candidate in the Democratic primary for that same House seat, those write-ins would be counted. So that's the first major exception and is in keeping, very expressly saying what the law has been. If there is a death or disqualification, those write-in candidates are counted without any consent having to be filed. That is the Senator Sears scenario. And if the total number of votes exceeds the minimum number that the person on the ballot received, meaning I'm on the ballot and I only receive 1,000 votes, but the total of write-ins is 1,500, then all the write-ins would need to be counted because it's possible that a write-in candidate would have one. So those are the major exceptions. There is a process, particularly if it's a multi-district race, where clerks can open the ballot bags the day after the election with permission and guidance from the Secretary of State to count the write-in candidates, because it would not be clear on election night that there was more write-ins than there were on the ballot to the town clerk. So those are the main things about write-ins. I think we've done a really excellent job between our work here in this committee and the work in the Senate. I think that it really meets the needs of the town clerks, which I'm very thankful for. So thank you. I have kept in touch with the minority leader in this chamber. And I believe she's supportive with those changes. So that is a negotiated and I think well-threaded needle. I'm happy to answer any questions about where that landed. I think that is probably of the changes, the most significant and most complicated to explain.
Okay, no, thank you for that. Representative Hango.
Thank you. I just want to thank the Deputy Secretary for working with the minority leader and the rest of us on this. It was really important for you to get this bill passed, and it was really important for us to be on board with what was in it. So thank you.
The team sport. So it's my pleasure. And it's been actually a great experience. So I agree. I'm very grateful to have done it. There were some changes in campaign finance. but not in section 13 and 14. Those remained the same, which is that every candidate must register and you must disclose your treasurer, but you only have to start disclosing funds, expenditures, and contributions at 500. 16 sections 14, 15, 16, 17, 17A through G, those are the big campaign finance sections. There were changes there, most notably when this bill left this committee and the House chamber, we were taking out the phrase independent expenditure only committee and modifying that. We really, we heard from some folks, witnesses on the Senate side. We also did more work with the Attorney General's office. We decided that it was best to keep that term independent expenditure only campaign. It is a federal term. The Federal Elections Commission uses it. So there's a body of case law and federal definitions, but we really looked at how to close loopholes. And the one that we really were striving to change in all those sections, it looks like a lot of changes, was clarifying that an independent expenditure only committee, which means that you are acting not connected to a candidate, but you're working to influence a campaign or influence the outcome of a race for a candidate. You could be working alone. You could be one business, you could be one person, individual, and you still would have to fall within that definition of independent expenditure campaigns. This was a loophole that the law was not clear because the word committee said two or more. And so that was confusing. So now, even though it's a little bit of a linguistic leap, the word committee can now be just one person because you're working towards something. And so with that loophole modified, if there was, let's say, something, a charter change that a major business disagreed with, and they didn't accept any contributions from anybody else, but they actively, put out a ton of signs and radio ads opposing that charter change in that community, they would have to file as an independent expenditure only campaign. So trying to make all of this space more transparent, more clear, and making sure that even if you're acting alone, that you would have to file. Again, that threshold is now $500. PACs, parties, and independent expenditures all set at $500. That was a change. Nuance, we talked about it with the Attorney General's office. There was some interest on the Senate side to make it even lower, but we won't need to make sure that we allow for independent political activism. We can't loop in people who are going and buying signs and Sharpies and protesting. And that could be, a couple $100 depending on how many people are doing that. But we did want to make sure that it was at a threshold where we weren't limiting anybody's speech. We just are requiring disclosure. And 500 was the agreed upon.
Waters Evans, I see hand.
Thanks. Just to maybe overly simplify it, this section is just making sure that wherever it says like political action committee or something like that, it also says independent
Expenditure only campaign.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm going to struggle with that later, I guarantee.
Well, you can just say the independent expenditure campaign.
So they're just side by side now so that they're.
Yeah, so it's really clear that all the requirements remain the same.
Okay.
That was an ambiguity. It was a gray space, and we had seen some issues there. And the key takeaway for your floor report is this increases transparency of spending in all political spaces. So that's really was our goal. The audit of voter checklists and district boundaries remained exactly the same as it left your chamber and is in this bill. Strengthening and clarifying the definitions of voter fraud. I believe that was in the House version, and that did not change on the Senate side. The review period to examine petitions is the same and as it left this body. The nomination of JPs deadline is the same as when it left this committee. The guidance for opening ballots is the same. Again, remember this was you could open them 30 days, but we needed it to be 45 to streamline with the UOCAVA deadlines. And those 15 days were confusing. the clarification that annual meeting does not fall under open meeting law is still there and was in your version. A piece that did change is section 37. I think that changed. That was on the Senate side. We wanted to clarify that the law around automatic voter registration through the DMV process, that you needed to either show proof of citizenship or attest to citizenship. We wanted to make that more clear in the law. It was there, but we wanted it to be more clearly expressed. We also wanted to get folks E911 address from DMV. You know, DMV asks for your address and they ask for it in a variety of formats. Well, we want the E911 address to come into our system to automatically flow so that our clerks have it. That's the best for boundary clarifications and that audit of the voter checklist. So, and those are the changes. And that's the bill. It is a pared down bill. I want to say that we were asked what our priorities were. There were some pieces that we cared about that were left on the floor. But that's where we were. Notably ranked choice voting and some of the local issues that we had talked about in this committee are not in this bill. But we look forward to supporting them in the next elections bill.
Okay. Questions from the table for our friends from Secretary of State's office? I would want to thank the committee. Well, first of all, I want to thank you folks for really helping pull this together over the last week and a half or so. This has been a lot of jumping jacks since February.
It's been a strange and odd trip, but it's been a good trip.
Oh, God, truer words. Anyway, Rep. Hoover of Burlington.
I'd like to thank you for continuing to include fruit in the bill.
Yes.
And ranked choice voting, I think, deserves to stand alone because it's complicated and we think. Thank you.
Yeah, I think for ranked choice voting, you know, I think that it's possible that in 27 we'll have a standalone bill or it included an elections bill. Those are policy decisions. I'm not ready to forecast yet, but I suspect that that is an issue that's going to come up. There's quite a few people who very strongly believe in ranked choice voting. And there is compelling arguments, at least to me, that ranked choice voting does help with political rhetoric because people are competing to get not just someone's first choice, but their third choice and their fourth choice. And I think given the events of the weekend in Minnesota, I think we all can agree we need to diminish political rhetoric and the divides. And so I think it is a way to do that. And we need bipartisanship and people to work together. So, but we'll see where that lands. Again, it will be probably in 27.
Okay. Anything else for our friends from across the street?
Thank you.
Finally,
Thank you.
Council, how are you? Did you join us, please? Thank you.
Good afternoon, committee members. For the record, my name is Tim Home, Legislative Counsel. You have a few materials at your disposal. One is a version of H 474, the election miscellaneous bill, as it was just passed out of the Senate, and which will look very similar to the last iteration, which was draft 11.3 that came from Senate GovOps, with the one modification amendment made to it that Senator Collmore spoke of, having to do with those write-in signature thresholds. And that has been highlighted to draw the eye to what is contrasted with the version that left the House originally. You also have an overview, which is lengthy, but much more succinct than the bill itself. And although it says it's to 11.3, it really is, again, pretty useful and captures all of what did change since it left the House. For reference, all the items that were, all the text that's been highlighted here appears in green font for easy identification. See what changed from left the House, what the Senate did. Here. Now, last time I was here, walked through the outline and really not much has changed aside from that one amendment that Senator Collmore just spoke about. What would be the best use of the committee's time as far as me answering any questions you may have or?
I mean, personally, I think we've all had a good amount of time to review this stuff. We got the information that you provided us prior to this last instance of amendment out to everyone. So I think there's a degree of comfort within the changes leading up. So we're at water zones.
I know that you highlighted them here, or wrote them in green, but would it be okay if we just quickly went through? Because I think I'll speak for myself, I won't say we, I have a firm idea of what stayed in the bill, what changed, but could you quickly go through all the parts that were deleted,
Yes.
if you don't mind? Is that all right? Do we have time?
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
all right.
we have till 2.
Yeah, we have till 2, all right. Could you please go over them until
Not saying you have to
1:59?
use all the minutes.
No, just like a quick run through what was deleted. I know that you sort of marked it everywhere here, but I just want to make sure we're clear.
Really high level run through.
Super high, yeah. Yeah.
So section 1's been deleted. That had to do with ranked choice voting report. Sections 2 and 3 were actually never left the House. They were deleted. And that had by this chamber had to do with the failure of major political parties to nominate a candidate by primary. So that didn't even see the Senate. Let's see. Oh, sorry. Apologies. That's section 6 and that had to do with the report on electronic ballot return. The failure of major political parties to nominate the candidates by primary, that indeed was removed by Senate Gov Ops. Apologies for the confusion. Let's see. Section 8 having to do with candidate demographic information has been removed. Section 19 prohibiting appointment of interested parties to a recount committee has been removed. Section 24, having to do with the filing of certificate of organization for political parties, that has been removed. And then a series of sections having to do with local elections. So section 30, cannabis establishment vote, Australian ballot. 31, annual and special municipal meetings at will municipal officers. Section 32, having to do with Australian ballot system modifications. Section 33, having to do with fire districts and their voters. Section 34, vacancies in town offices. Section 35 and 36, having to do with the authority of constables. And 38 and 39, which was a list of candidate names on ballots, although that was introduced by the Senate and then deleted by the Senate. Don't have much to do with you. That's it. Happy to go into much more detail if you'd like.
No, thank you. That was good. I just wanted to make sure we touched on everything that was in it when it left here and did not return with the bill. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee for Mr. Deb? Again, I got you at the table, sir, so I want to also thank you for
You're very welcome.
work on this. Yeah, this has been a complex evolution of this bill. These elections bills are always, a lot of work, effort, and emotion, but I just wanted to recognize your professionalism and your efforts through this committee and the body in general on this, as well as other items. So thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
And if that's it for Mr. Devil, we can
That's it.
excuse him from the table.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, team. Open it up for discussion right now. You do have to take an informal position on this, so it would be a straw. But I want to give everybody a moment to speak to any pieces, parts, whatnot. Large items.
I liked it when the way it was when it left here, but I understand that it's really important that we get some of this going right now. And I fully supported the Secretary of State's office and glad we were able to compromise on the writing candidate stuff. And it seems like we're in a good, comfortable place for everybody. And I'm super supportive of it.
Yes, and I'm very happy that we got this thing off the wall and moving.
Yeah, I was worried.
Rep. Dodd?
And I'd just like to say I'm a lot more comfortable with this bill now, the way it is now. I agree with Bob that the Rep Hooper that ranked choice voting should be more to the standalone. And forward to working toward that. But this bill right now, I think we're good. I think it's a lot better and it makes sure it identifies a key concern with the voting districts so that we don't have another incident.
Yes, that was a big fat promise we made in that Bennington one process. Yes.
I really like that we're gonna do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yes, sir. Representative Hooper, how are you? We were just doing committee discussion on H 474 before we strawed our committee position on the proposals of amendment.
Not 454.
Nope, that's the other one. Couple of digits. Close, not the same.
I could talk about.
Bill numbers always clustered at the end.
Sounds like smart people did good work.
Say your position on it.
That's my position on 474.
Yeah. You said.
454?
Okay, let's stay focused on the 474. Eye on the prize. Okay, anything else from any members? Okay, well, I guess I'll make the motion. All right, barring no other questions, concerns, or discussion, I move that we find favorable the bill is amended from the Senate. Thumbs up to support. And that looks like a unanimous 11-0-0. Damn fine work, team.
First time. Happy.
And I don't see why this committee would be called back down here for any reason.
Knock on wood. Sorry.
Article board, sheet rock, yes. No, I just wanted to say on the record that, we did a lot of good work this year and I'm really proud of the stuff that we moved. I really enjoy working with this team. And so I just personally wanted to thank all
And thank you, Chair Byron.
of them. So
Very much appreciated.
Steering the ship.
our little pirate ship there.
Awesome.
All right, with that, hopefully this is a wrap for this session. All right.
Crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed.